What's up, guys? Today we're going to be fixing the 2JZ E36. If you saw the last video, the drift event, the second day of the event, I had a wheel that sheared off all the studs and flew off the car. So basically we need to get the brakes off and then pull the hub out and replace the bearing and the hub and put some new wheel studs on it and put it all back together. I gotta hurry up though, because time is running short before the next drift event, which is the first round of the points series up in North Dakota. So we're gonna get right to it. I'm gonna get it jacked up and get all the brakes off and go from there. All right, so there's multiple ways we could go about pulling the old hub off, but I think the 3-jaw puller is going to be the easiest, so we're going to give that a shot and see if it works. All right, so we almost had it completely out with the 3-jaw puller, but it ran out of threads. It was maxed out. Just had a little ways left to go, so I just hit it with the slide hammer real quick and pulled it the rest of the way out. Now, of course, we still have the rest of the wheel bearing in there, so I went ahead and removed the axle so I can use a wheel bearing press and get the bearing out. But first things first, we gotta get out this huge C-clip. Now, these C-clips take a lot of effort to get out due to how big they are, so I definitely recommend a high-quality pair of snap ring pliers. Specifically ones that are ratcheting like this, they make it way easier. Just gonna smack the bearing in a little bit to relieve some of the pressure off the snap ring. And there it is. All right, we got the rear end all back together. The axle was a little bit of a struggle. It wasn't too bad, but just trying to get it to go all the way into the hub was kind of a pain, but I got it. It's all bolted up. Wheels back on, so she's ready to go back on the ground. So the next project I've got is gonna be an issue that's been plaguing me for a while. The power steering in this car has never worked perfectly. It works as long as you're a little higher in the RPMs, but at idle, it doesn't work at all. You have to rev it up for it to work. So I've been through 2 pumps. I've changed the rack. I had a few leaks initially. I fixed all of those, and we're still having the same problem. So I've read through some posts from other people that had similar issues, and there's some kind of back and forth, but it seems like the general consensus is to run a BMW pump instead of the stock JZ pump. Because the BMW pump is the correct pressure for the BMW rack, and the pulley size should be correct, so it should work better. So there's already a couple of videos out there on how to do this, so I'm not going to show you guys every detail, But essentially you can take the BMW pump and you can bolt it up to the factory JZ pump bracket and then just bolt it onto the engine. Now, supposedly we'll need a couple spacers because it's not the same thickness, the pump isn't. But we'll get it around there and we'll see what it's gonna take. The important thing is that the pulley is perfectly in line with all the other pulleys. And then since I already have AN lines for the power steering, all I had to do was buy this little adapter here for the high pressure to go to AN. And then this just has a barb fitting for the feed, which is low pressure. So I'll just take off the AN fitting that I have on my line, put the line directly on there and use a hose clamp. So I'm gonna get the old pump off, get the pump out of the bracket, and then get this pump in the bracket, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Okay, so I went ahead and put the BMW pump in the car already because I wanted to test it and make sure it would fit. Apparently I got the wrong pump. There's two different E36 pumps. There's I think it's called the LF20 and the LF30. The 30 is the one you need. I will definitely put a link in the description to the correct pump. But the correct pump has bolt holes on the front and on the back. So you can actually use 4 bolts. The pump I got only has them on the front, but I was able to get 3 bolts on it because this bolt down here is a pass-through on the pump. So I actually put a bolt in from the front and I put a bolt in from the back. I put these aluminum spacers in there to fill the gap between the bracket and the pump. But there's those 2 bolts and then a bolt over here. And then I had to clearance this rear arm a little bit because of my bolt head on the back of the pump. I'm gonna try this pump for now. I did go ahead and order the correct pump, the LF30. So if this one doesn't work, I'll swap that in, but I only have a couple days before this thing has to be loaded on the trailer to go to the track. So we're gonna hope this works. If not, I'm definitely bringing my old JZ setup with me just in case. I know that works. It's not perfect, but at least it'll get me through the event. So, and then I'll probably get the LF30 pump before I leave, so I'll bring that one with me. Might try throwing that one on at the track if this one doesn't work, but we'll see. So anyways, the pump is in now. I gotta put the pulley on it, make sure the pulley is flush with all the other pulleys in the system, and then hook up my lines and bleed it. So we've got a straight edge on there. Hopefully you can see that, but we've got a very tiny, tiny gap there. And no gaps anywhere else. So it's pretty close to flush. It's not perfect, but I don't think it needs to be 100% perfect. Another thing to note is the BMW pulley is a little bit smaller, so we'll get the belt on and see how tight it is in comparison to when I had the JZ pump on there. This car does have a hydraulic tensioner, so as long as that tensioner has enough room to move and keep the belt tight, it should be okay. But otherwise, there's other things we can do to make sure the belt doesn't fly off. That's one thing I definitely don't want to have happen. I want this car to be super reliable, so a belt that flies off all the time and takes me out of competition would not be a good thing. But we'll see how it works for now. We'll see how tight it is once I get the belt on. If I think it's too loose, we'll do something about it. So now before I put the belt on, I'm going to connect the lines. I'm going to get it filled with fluid, and then I'm actually going to turn the pump by hand and pump some fluid through it. I've had problems before, so I really want to make sure I get all the air out before I try running the pump, because if you try to run the pump dry, it can kill it. So we're going to do that real quick, and then we'll get the belt on, start it up, and see how it goes. All right, so I've pumped it about as much as I could by hand. I also turned the steering wheel both ways a bunch of times, basically until it stopped losing fluid, kept filling it up as I went. So now it's the moment of truth. We got the belt on. It seems a little looser than I would like. There's not a lot of room for the hydraulic tensioner to tighten it if it were to flex and needed to be tightened, but we'll see how it works. So now it's time to start it. Important step, have the car off the ground, at least the front tires in the air, so that when you start it, you can turn the wheel and there's no load on it. And do that for a little bit, keep turning the wheel with the pump running. And then after that, hopefully most of the air is out, we'll put it on the ground and we'll keep going with it. So let's start it up and see if the pump works. All right, so there was no whining from the pump when I started it, so that's a good sign we got most of the air out. But now that it's running, we're gonna turn the wheel. Already topped off the fluid. So we'll just turn the wheel until we get some of the air out and keep filling the fluid. All right, so it already seems a lot better than the JZ pump. There's no noise from the pump. The power steering seems like it's working, and it seems like we already got all the air out of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower the front end and then try to turn in the wheel and see how it feels. Power steering is definitely working at idle. Oh. I'm doing this with one hand, hardly any effort. Heck yeah, I'm super pumped on that. Like I said, having no power steering at idle was so annoying, especially because like if you're going through, like coming off track, there's a really slow, sharp right-hand turn around a wall, so you have to go slow. You're not really on throttle. So the only way to get around it would be to kind of sit there and try to crank the wheel while giving it some gas. Super annoying. The other thing was just occasionally while drifting, like mid-course, there'd be random places where I'd be fighting the steering wheel a little bit. I think because I was off throttle, so there's no power steering. So I feel like that made me less smooth. It made it hard to be super smooth and consistent. So hopefully having power steering that works all the time will make my driving a lot better. But we'll find out this weekend at the first competition. So got a couple more quick things to do before then, like an oil change and just some other minor maintenance things, but I'm not gonna bore you guys with all of that. So that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. I've had a lot of support lately and I really appreciate that from all of you. So if you're not subscribed, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications every time I post a video. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up in the future. We're doing a lot of driving this year. It's gonna be a ton of fun. And if you have anything to say, make sure to throw it down in the comments. I reply to pretty much every comment I get. I love reading them. Negative, positive, doesn't matter. Throw in the comments. But until next time, we'll see you guys later.